In 1898, the Bronx was annexed to New York City and became its northernmost and only mainland borough. It was founded on the eastern bank of the Hudson River, along the southern part of its course. The glacier that covered part of North America during the last ice age receded about 11,000 years ago and gave way to a floodplain forest whose remnants have been preserved in Bronx Park to this day. As soon as the land became fertile, the Algonquian people settled in the Hudson Valley and began growing maize, beans, and squash, besides fishing, hunting, and gathering. Their largest village, called Nevish, was located at Croton Point, where the Croton River flows into the Hudson in today's Westchester County, just north of the Bronx. A smaller Algonquian village, which eventually became the Bronx proper, was called Ranunqua Keskeskek. Italian Old Salt Sebastiano Caboto sighted the Bronx Peninsula from the Long Island Sound in the late 15th century, while his fellow countryman Giovanni da Verrazzano spotted the Hudson River mouth in the early 16th century. However, it was not until 1609 that English explorer Henry Hudson sailed up the Hudson River and landed on the treacherous headland called Spuyten Duyvil. Today, the neighborhood's landmarks are Edge Hill Church and a tall statue of Henry Hudson. The first European to relocate to these backwoods was Danish farmer Jonas Bronk. His farm, dating back to 1639, became known as Dane Bronk's Land. Persecuted by Dutch colonist Willem Kieft, the local Native American population revolted against foreign settlers in 1643. Among those killed in the rebellion was feminist precursor Anne Hutchinson. Pelham Bay Park, the largest park in the whole of New York City, is named after English colonist Thomas Pell. The park contains the famous Bartow Pell Mansion, the Bronx Victory Memorial, the American Boy statue, as well as several glacial boulders such as the Split Rock and Glover's Rock. The eastern edge of the park, known as Orchard Beach, is linked by a bridge to City Island, which in turn boasts a nautical museum, the quaint Pelham Cemetery, and the cozy Black Whale Pub. In 1691, Dutch colonist Jacob van Cortlandt purchased a parcel of land which became Van Cortlandt Park, the second largest park in the Bronx, which houses a stadium, a golf course, and a fishing lake. One of its most popular features is the tortoise and hare sculpture. The Lorillard Tobacco Company was founded on the Bronx River in 1760 by Pierre Abraham Lorillard, whose earliest snuff mill is still standing in Bronx Park. In 1840, the Morris family built St. Anne's Shrine and a family burial crypt. They also designed Wave Hill House, which, thanks to its grand hall and its view of the Hudson River, became a popular guest house and gave accommodation to poets, artists, and scientists. The Rose Hill campus, established in 1841 by Bishop John Hughes, is home to Fordham University, as well as an ancient church, a library, and a gym. The symbol of Fordham University is a goat. In 1846 and 47, author Edgar Allan Poe lived in a cottage surrounded by a garden in the center of the Bronx. The College of Mount St. Vincent was founded in 1847 in the Riverdale neighborhood. The campus includes a Gothic castle, a stone cottage, and a small shrine. In 1849, the Execution Rocks Lighthouse was erected on an islet in the East River, where several slaves had been executed by drowning. In relation to this, the southern tract of the East River was nicknamed Hell Gate. In 1857, industrialist Adrian Janes founded the Janes Iron Foundry in the Bronx and was responsible for casting the Iron Dome of the U.S. Capitol building, as well as several bridges in New York. The earliest version of the McCombs Dam Bridge was built across the Harlem River in 1814. Just north of the McCombs Dam Bridge, the High Bridge was designed like a Roman aqueduct and was completed in 1848 as part of the Croton Aqueduct, which carried water from the Croton River to supply the city of New York. The bridge has a height of 43 meters above the Harlem River and connects Manhattan to the hillier sections of the Bronx, characterized by steep stairways, such as the Shakespeare Steps. Fort Schuyler, named after General Philip Schuyler, was built in the South Bronx in the mid-19th century. It now houses the Maritime Industry Museum and the New York Maritime College. Woodlawn Cemetery, built on rolling hills in 1863, boasts some unique monuments, including the Annie Bliss Titanic Memorial and Frank Woolworth's tomb. After the Civil War, waves of African Americans, Irish, and Italians flocked to the Bronx. Little Italy in the Bronx is still a thriving neighborhood centered around the Arthur Avenue Retail Market and Mount Carmel's Church. From 1866 to 1877, the Bronx was raided by river pirate gangs such as the Charlton Street Gang, which was led by the female pirates Sadie the Goat Farrell. Passed in 1884, the new Parks Act laid the foundations for the Bronx Zoo and Botanical Garden. The latter includes the Haupt Conservatory, the Mertz Library, and the Fountain of Life. In 1885, a quarantine hospital was built on North Brother Island in the East River. In 1904, the steamship General Slocum caught fire and sank in front of the island as dozens of corpses washed upon its shore. The hospital was converted into a confinement facility for drug addicts and finally closed down in 1963, leaving the island abandoned and haunted. In 1896, German sculptor Ernest Herter completed a white marble fountain which was placed in the southwestern Bronx. It was dedicated to the river goddess Lorelei and to poet Heinrich Heine. The late 19th century saw the development of the University Heights district, which includes the Gould Library and the Hall of Fame of Great Americans. In 1909, the Grand Concourse, running 8 kilometers north-south across the Bronx, was finally completed. At its southern end was built the Yankee Stadium, whereas its northern stretch was flanked by the Kingsbridge Armory, as well as Lehman College, famous for a large sculpture of an Amerindian warrior's head. In 1919, the Bronx was the site of 63 piano factories, which used softwood from the Catskill Mountains, about 100 miles up the Hudson River from the Bronx. Some of America's greatest pianists were born in the Bronx, such as Pete Rodriguez, Murray Pariah, and Billy Joel. The Bronx attracted British authors such as Aleister Crowley, who in 1918 sailed up the Hudson River and spent 40 days on Esopus Island to write his own version of the Chinese classic Dao De Jing. After World War I, many immigrants from the Russian Empire and the Balkan Peninsula, mostly Ashkenazi Jews, settled in the West Bronx and opened several cultural centers as well as the Daughters of Jacob nursing home. After World War II, the most massive wave of immigration came from the Antilles, especially Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. In fact, the Bronx is characterized by numerous botanica shops selling herbs, oil, candles, incense, and religious items associated with Santeria and Curanderia. The Cross Bronx Expressway and the development of high-rise housing projects brought about discontent and led to a wave of arson starting in 1972 and culminating in the Happy Land Fire of 1990. A music store called Casa Hernandez opened in the Longwood neighborhood in 1941, specializing in Caribbean styles such as calypso, bomba, mambo, and merengue. Musician Mike Amadeo, who bought the shop in 1969 and renamed it Casa Amadeo, associated with Bronx musicians including Doris Troy, Dion DiMucci, and the brothers Eddie and Charlie Palmieri. They contributed to the rise of a new music genre called Boogaloo. In 1968, Johnny Pacheco and Jerry Mazzucci founded the label Fania Records that brought together the best Bronx musicians and singers, including Ralphie Pagan, Willie Colon, Nicky Marrero, Eddie Montalvo, and many others. They created New York Salsa and formed the super band Fania All Stars, which performed at Yankee Stadium in 1973. Meanwhile, musicians such as Coke LaRock, Big Bang Hank, Disco King Mario, and Africa Bambaataa created old-school hip-hop, marked by its party-oriented lyrics and sound. In the 1970s, a number of immigrants from Southeast Asia also made the Bronx their home and opened cultural centers such as the Mekong Association and the Temple of Enlightenment. Some Chinese Buddhists eventually traveled 50 miles north to Putnam County and founded the Zhuangyan Monastery, which boasts America's largest Buddha statue. The Bronx is also the birthplace of acclaimed film directors George Romero and Abel Ferrara, actors Peter Falk and Chaz Palminteri, authors Harold Bloom and Robert Caro, and scientists Leonard Susskind and Carolyn Porco, just to name a few.